بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So first of all, I'd like to thank Allah Ta'ala for this opportunity, and I want to give my condolences to the Imam of our time and to all of you on the Shahada anniversary of our fourth Imam, Imam Zainul Abidin As-Sajjad alayhi salam. May Allah give us the tawfiq to learn about this Imam, to pledge our allegiance to him and to all of the Imam, especially the Imam of our time, and to adopt their teachings in our lives and spread them to others. I want to thank the management of the madrasa for giving me this opportunity to be here this morning. And I want to thank all of you for taking the interest in the topic of tarbiyah, of raising your children, and participating in today's seminar. So the topic that we're going to be covering is the impact of media on children. The goal behind this presentation is to basically to look at some of the responsibilities that we have as parents. The responsibilities that we have as parents of the importance of raising our children. So we have as parents, who have children, we have additional duties from Allah. So it's a time for us to, inshallah, remind ourselves of these duties and to learn how to fulfill these duties in a better way. And what that involves is looking at media. So today we're going to be looking at media. We want to understand what are the harmful consequences of media exposure from an Islamic perspective. So this presentation is, again, looking at it from an Islamic perspective. And then we're going to be looking at some of the Islamically encouraged techniques for parenting in response to media exposure. If we can understand what the harm is of media, then we need to know how to respond to that. How as parents, what are some practical things we can do? So the first part of this is just trying to analyze and understand what is media like from an Islamic perspective, what is media doing to our children, and then the last part is to offer some suggestions, some practical tips about what we can do in order to fulfill our responsibility as parents better when it comes to media. Okay, I want to begin this by first of all reminding us of two traditions from the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. You might have seen these before. They have to do with a certain group of people called the Murji'ah. Now the Murji'ah were a certain school of thought that were active during the times of our Imams alayhim as-salam. This was after the death of the Prophet. Their major philosophy was, they said that it doesn't really matter what you do. Just be a person with a good heart, and then whatever you want to do, that's not really what's important. Just believe, and that's it. And it's very interesting how in today's world you also have the same type of groups and the same type of thinking. Now, Imam Ali alayhi salam, in two different traditions, he talks about this group, and he talks about the responsibility of parents when it comes to their children and this group. In one of them he says that hurry to raise your children and your youth on the basis of the hadith of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam before the Murji'ah get to them. And then in another tradition he says that teach your children from our knowledge, meaning the knowledge of the Ahlul Bayt, by which with what Allah will cause them to benefit, so that the Murji'ah are not able to overpower them with their views. Now, it's important to look at these traditions not just looking at it from a historical context, that there was a group of people and this is what the Imam alayhi salam said. If you just kind of look at it in an intelligent way, in a rational way, the Imam alayhi salam is telling us a few important things. One of them is that, number one, we have to be aware of competing ideologies. Okay, there's the ideology of the Ahlul Bayt, and then there's other groups that are out there. Be aware of them, and be aware that they can get to your children as well too. Don't be just safe if thinking that you have a firm faith. That's not enough. Your having a firm faith is step number one, but you also have to take an effort when it comes to your children as well. There's also something else that the Imam was telling us, which is that you have to be actively engaging with your children and doing it fast as well too, at an early age, before this ideology gets to them first. As if the Imam ﷺ is saying that if you're too late and the children's hearts get taken by this other ideology, then no matter what you try afterwards, it's not really going to have that much of an impact. Okay, so this is just a sampling of some of the traditions directly regarding tarbiyah and how important it is that we are aware of what's going into our children's hearts, and how important it is for us to make sure that we plant the right seeds in their hearts. Now I want to look at this. So first I want to look at some Islamic perspectives on media intake. Okay, now that we've kind of understood the importance of tarbiyah, let's look at media intake. Like, what does Islam say about media? And then we're going to look at some potential harms of media, and then some recommendations, and then some questions. So, what are some Islamic guidelines for viewing? Unfortunately, the font hasn't come out nicely on the version that you're seeing. On my computer, it's all nice and pretty, but there it's not pretty. Anyhow, what's important is the text. All right, the first tradition is this. We want to look at three traditions, okay, three hadith from Imam Ali alayhi salam. We're gonna turn to Imam Ali as our guide today to see what we can understand about viewing media. Okay, now these traditions are very key. My request to all of you is to, again, not look at them simply. Try to understand the deeper message behind them. Okay, the first one is this. وَالْعَيْنُ جَاسُوسُ الْقَلْبِ وَبَرِيدُ الْعَقْلِ. Imam Ali is talking about the role of the eye, about what we see. The question is that what is the impact of what we see? What is the impact of what our children see on them? How does it change them? Alright, so we're going to take this question, we're going to take it to the doorstep of our Mawla, Amir al-Mu'mineen. We're going to ask him this question. Oh Imam Ali, teach us what the impact of media is on our children, of what they see. He says that the eye is the barid of the aql. Barid means postman. What does a postman do? He takes a message from the source and then he gives it to the destination. So the eye's job is to take a message from the source, okay, which in this case is going to be like Hollywood or Bollywood, right? And it's going to be conveyed to what? To our aql. Now, what is our aql? Our aql is the center of, in this case at least, a very simple understanding of it is that it is the center of our thinking. All of us are gifted with this ability to be able to reason and to think about things in a rational way. But this ability to reason and think in a rational way can be influenced to make us think in an irrational way, in a way that doesn't make sense. What are the factors that can make us think in a way that doesn't make sense? One of them is what we see. So here, Imam Ali is teaching us that what you see affects the way you think. Now, the way you think affects the way that you make decisions, obviously. Because when you want to make a decision, we think about it and then we make a decision. And when you make a decision, then we're going to act on it. So, basically, in summary for this hadith, what we see changes what we do. Right? There's messages that are being conveyed to us through our eyes that's going to change what we do, and it's going to change what our children do as well. That's hadith number 1. Now we're going to look at 2 more hadith and we're going to look at some examples. Hadith number 2 is this. Al-qalbu mushaful basar. This is reversed, but anyhow, it's supposed to be right to left. Anyway, the Imam alayhi salam is saying that the heart is the mushaf of the eye. Now, this is again a very, very instructional hadith. We're asking the question of Imam Ali, "Oh Imam, what is the effect of media on our children? When they spend time on the phones, when they spend time in front of the screen, what's happening to them inside?" Imam Ali says that what's happening is that a mushaf is being written for them. Now, in Arabic, there's a difference between the word kitab and the word mushaf. In English, we translate both of them as book. All right? But in Arabic, there's a difference. And when our imams speak, they speak very precisely. Mushaf is a complete manuscript. From beginning to the end, cover the whole thing. That's a mushaf. Okay? A kitab can be a single page, it can be multiple pages, it can be a chapter, or it can be a whole document. But mushaf means complete, from the beginning to the end. What is the message that we're taking from our Imam al-Islam? We're taking that what the eye sees is captured into a book, and that book is written into the hearts of the person who sees. Meaning now in the first hadith, Imam was talking about what happens to our power of thinking, how that gets influenced. In this hadith, the Imam is teaching us what happens to the way we feel about things. Now, what's more important, what we feel about something or what we think about something? You can ask yourself, when it comes to your children, how do they make their decisions? Do they make it based on what they think or what they feel? What do you guys think? What's your feedback? What they feel, right? At the end of the day, there's sometimes when our children, like they really do know, but like what they know kind of gets pushed aside. It's really what they feel, right? So Imam al-Islam teaching us is that what they see is going to affect what they do, basically. Again, and a third hadith, okay, al-uyunu tala'i'ul qulub. Tala'i' is the plural of tali'a, which means somebody who scouts ahead. Back in the days when they used to have like, even in today's world, when you have warfare, right? You have your army. Now the army wants to move in a certain direction. It's going to send out its advanced scouts. They're going to go and survey the land. Look at where the weaknesses are in the enemy, find a strategy, and then come back and then direct the rest of the army and tell them that, okay, look at this is where you got to go, right? Imam al-Islam is teaching us something here. He's saying that there's something which pulls our hearts in a certain direction. The same way that the advanced scouts are going to be, guiding the army, that you need to go there, don't go over there. There's something that guides our hearts and our center of emotions in that way as well, which is our eyes, what we see. What we see is going to pull our hearts in this direction or that direction. And again, what our hearts are, what we feel is how we make our decisions and how we are, what we actually become. So if you put these three together, all right, these two hadith put together, then the conclusion we're getting is that when it comes to what we think and when it comes to what we feel, all of these, the Imams are teaching us that these are directly influenced by one factor, and that factor is what we see, what we behold. Okay, the time we spend in front of the screens. Now, as a parent who takes the Imams as guides for life, right? Because that's what we believe that our Imams are guides for how to live life, right? Including how I raise my children. Then this is a very, very strong message I'm getting from my Imams. That I need to be very concerned about what is it that's going in, because that's going to be very influential on what comes out in terms of the actual product that I have coming out from in the form of my children. So we have a responsibility here, which is that we need to make sure that what they see and what they intake is chosen very carefully. And we have a great responsibility when it comes to how we treat this issue of media and media exposure. So now what we're going to be looking at is we're going to look at some of the potential harms of media, and we're going to also look at some examples as well. Now, the first harm is that whom are we sharing the upbringing of our children with? Okay, what I mean by this is that when it comes to raising our children, if we think that we're the ones who are raising our children, we're dreaming. Okay, because that's not how it actually works, right? In today's world, it's not like back in the old days where our child was basically our product, right? Now we have much more less control than we had in the past, and we're competing with a whole bunch of other competitors, right? And these competitors are very active, very attractive, okay, and very much involved with raising our children for us. Okay, they include the friends that they have. They include extended family members, right? There's sometimes when we want our children to be in a certain way, but their cousins want them to be another way, and you know how it works, right? There's daycares, right? There's schools, the school environment as well, very, very powerful. There's their teachers as well too. The teachers do guide them, and they are role models for them, whether we like it or not. And we're also competing with the media. Okay, now, so we need to understand all these. We need to care about all of them as parents, right? All of them should be a concern for us, but this last one is the focus for today, which is the media. What kind of competitor is this? Is this somebody who is a good friend to have, a good partner to have? Is it a good surrogate parent to have when it comes to raising our children? What is their motivation? What kind of people are they? Who are they? All right, so let's look at that. Well, before we get there, let's go through this actually. That I just want to give a quote here. Malcolm X says that only a fool will let his enemy teach his children. Okay, so if we know that all those groups are teaching our children, along with us, right? Then we need to understand: are they our friends or are they our enemies? So let's go look at the media in particular. Now, this image right here, I know it's a bit hard to see, but basically what it's showing is that there are 6. So back in 1983, this is the number of companies that were media companies in the United States. Okay, there was a number of them. Okay, in 2012, there's 6 media giants that control 90% of all media. Okay, so I don't know why this isn't showing up properly on the screen here, but these 6 companies, like Comcast, News Corp, Disney, Viacom, Time Warner, CBS, these own 90% of the content that our children and that we view as well. In 1983, the same 90% was owned by 50 companies. Okay, so now it's 6, before it was 50. Any thoughts on this? What are your thoughts? Like, what is the big deal? Why is this an important thing for us to be aware of? If it goes from 50 to 6, is it really a big deal? Any thoughts? One mindset. Okay. One mindset. Anybody else? Complete control. Okay. No breathing room. Right? One image, one message. All right. I read a statistic which was from the 2011 elections for Prime Minister here in Canada. It's a very interesting one. It said that all newspapers in Canada that endorsed a presidential candidate, candidate for, all of them that wrote an editorial that endorsed a prime minister for 2011 elections, all of them chose Stephen Harper in 2011, except for one newspaper in Toronto. Otherwise, every single one of them. And if you look at the proportion, it was 3 times the amount that the poll ratings were saying, meaning that somehow there was a massive sort of effort to come together and to endorse one candidate, right? So this is the type of thing. It's one voice that's basically controlling what we say and what we listen to. Now, this is another way of looking at this data. In the United States, this is the thing. There's 1,500 newspapers, 1,100 magazines, stations, TV stations, publishers, all of them owned by 6 corporations. Okay, that's a lot, right? Meaning that we're deluded into thinking that there's different people who are talking to us. Now, in Canada, by the way, it's even worse. All right, out of all the countries in the G8 countries, that country that has the most consolidation and the most unified message that's coming out from the companies is Canada. 81.4% of the content is being controlled by a very small amount of companies. All right, now there's some cartoonists who have sort of expressed what happens, if this is the case. Unfortunately, again, so this basically there's a bunch of garbage cans here. They're being poured into our child's mind, right? And now it's just one garbage can. Okay, it's one unified effort, right? They can choose what type of garbage to put in. Okay, or here's another one. Here you have this one sort of megaphone, right? It says concentration of media ownership, and you have the puppy. Okay, and the puppy represents the public, and it's like his master's voice, right? So now it's just one big, loud, controlled, unified sort of push to basically dictate and to control the agenda in terms of what is being heard. Okay, so that's number 1. Now, number 2 is the harm number 2, as when it comes to media exposure that we need to be aware of, is that media can provide false answers to real needs. When you look at the writings of our ulama who have analyzed what is a human being from the perspective of the Quran and the teaching of the Ahlul Bayt, they acknowledge that there are certain basic needs that a child has. That every human being has, actually. All right. One of them is a need for love and attention. All of us need to be loved. Okay, this is an intrinsic need that we have. We have a need to dispel energy. We have we get active, right? We eat, we get energy. We need to dispel that energy. We have a need for socialization as well, to interact with other human beings on a social level. We have a need for variety and entertainment. Now, media comes along, and for each one of these, it gives its own response, its own version of satisfying that need. Okay. Here, what I'm pointing out here is that there's some needs which become stronger at certain times in a human being's development. For example, the need to play is stronger in the first 7 years. Okay. Now, in the media, we have answers to these. In the first one, when it comes to releasing energy, right, the media says that, okay, you want to release your energy? Okay, fine, come along, right, and you can watch other people do it. Right? If you think about it, you come watch other people. Come watch these sports figures. Let them get that energy, and you watch it. Right? Or you come and you press the buttons on your controller and watch them like run around. Okay, it's a false solution to a real need, because the real need is for you to get rid of that energy, right? Not for them to get, but it does kind of address that need that we have. That's why we see people getting excited about it. Another one is to be loved, escape into a virtual world. Okay, go play Minecraft or go play whatever like that, and then chat with your beloved ones online, right? And that need that you had to be loved by a real person, right? Get it satisfied in this world, in this way. Go chat with your friends, go on social media and be loved in that way. Another one is that to feel like we all of us need to belong, right? So the way that you can belong is by adoring a celebrity, by joining the fan club, by admiring what this celebrity or this model does in their lives. That's somehow providing or meaning to provide this sort of answer to this need we have to belong. And then to satisfy the need for variety and entertainment, right, just come back to media and just change the channel, right? You view it from another perspective. Okay, now, when we're rational people, right? We can see that, okay, these are needs that we all have. Now, is this a system that Allah created that He wanted us to satisfy these needs with? Or was there something else that He intended other than these things? Right? Is media really the way that is going to give us the real answer to these? No, it's false answers to these needs. Now, what happened? What's the big deal? Okay, so my child needed to get energy dispelled. Instead, they went and they played FIFA for 3 hours in the afternoon. Okay, is there anything wrong with that? Answer is yes. Okay, there is something wrong with that. Right? When it comes to development of our children, it's very harmful. Okay, it's like trying to quench thirst with salty water. Right? When you're thirsty, okay, you're going to drink anything. You can drink salt water. Okay, fine. Drink salt water. What's going to happen to you? Right? You're going to get more thirsty. Right? You're going to drink more. You're going to get more thirsty. And that's the way it is when it comes to media. And you know that. I mean, different children have different levels of showing this. But your experience with your children must have shown this, that the more they have, right, the more they want. Right? It's like there's something they just kind of like they get trapped in, and like this sort of addiction. Okay, and it's been shown that the same type of brain sensors are triggered when it comes to addiction. Right? Social media, video games trigger the same type of reaction in the body that addiction does. Like if you get addicted to alcohol or something. And the thing which is very dangerous is that it leads to a lack of desire to engage in alternatives. A child who gets used to dispelling energy on their video game console, right? And you tell them after a year of that let's go to the playground. They'll be like, huh? Like, your playground to do what? You want me to play on slides and monkey bars? You think I'm a monkey or something? You know how it is, right? When it comes to children, right? Or let's go to the conservation area and have a picnic there, right? Mom, Dad, come on, that's unfortunately that's the reality, right? That to wean them off of that and to give them the real solution to those real needs becomes more and more difficult. And what happens is that we get blinded to the real solutions Allah has created for these needs, right? We don't even realize it. Like, yes, okay, one thing that we need to kind of convince ourselves of is that there was a time in history where parents were able to raise their kids without devices. Right? Like there was, right? I mean, it was like most of history until recent times. Just in the last, few years that it became something which is a necessity. But there was a time. Now, how did they do it, right? Is it really something which is so important for all of our children to have iPads and for them to be given unreined access to this? Okay. Harm number 3 is that it promotes anti-God agendas. This is something, again, that we need to understand, that these people who are feeding our children these messages are not necessarily our friends. Okay, they have a different agenda. At the very least, they want money, right? And that's their bottom line. They don't care about God. They don't care about halal and haram. They want money, right? Now, sometimes there might be the case that what they promote is something which is halal. Other times it's not. But at the end of the day, we have to understand that their motivation is something other than Allah. So what is it that they're promoting? Right? This is something that we need to examine. I'm going to give you some examples now. Okay? Now, when looking at these examples, you might be saying that, brother, you're being very nitpicky. You're being very like conspiracy theory type of thing. I'm not. Okay? All I'm trying to do is give you, inshallah, try to provide a perspective on how is it as parents we should be picky and we should be watchful over what messaging is being conveyed by that postman, right, to our children. Okay, I'm going to look at some examples from Disney. All right, first of all, like Little Mermaid, Frozen. Now, Little Mermaid. Here's the passage. Okay, that this is Ursula, I think that's her name is, right? So she's saying, here's the deal. I'm going to make you a potion that will turn you into a human being for 3 days. And then before the sun sets on the third day, you've got to get the dear old prince to fall in love with you. He has to kiss you, the kiss of love. If he does kiss you before the sun sets on the third day, you'll remain human permanently. But if he doesn't, you turn back into a mermaid and you belong to me. Now, have you ever thought about Little Mermaid as something which is encouraging the concept of slavery? Right? You probably haven't, right? Because it's a kids show, right? But if you analyze this and you see what is she threatening this girl with, right? You'd say, wait a minute, is that something? Isn't that a pretty like mature theme? Okay, let's look at what she says over here. Okay, I need the volume high on this. Let's see. Do we? Oh, the volume's not going to work? Oh, okay. All right. Okay. All right. So I'll have to quote it for you then. Is it going to work on the computer? No, but it's not working on the computer. Okay.
Don't underestimate the importance of body language.
Okay, so just in case you didn't see that, she says that don't underestimate the importance of body language. Okay, now, don't underestimate the importance of it's something to take note of, that the messaging that's being given to our children at a very young age is not necessarily something which is pure. It's not something which is naive, not something which is innocent. Don't underestimate the importance of body language, and then the type of thing that she does at the end. I don't know if you saw that, but it's something that I know I would not want my daughter being exposed to. That's not something which is something good for her to see. Okay, here's another one. Now this is from the movie Aladdin. All right. By the way, how many of you have seen Aladdin? Okay, and how many of your children have seen Aladdin? Let me put it that way. Okay. Well, I don't know. Okay. Anyway, let's see.
I love the feathers. When it comes to exotic type mammals,
As he's got a zoo, and I'm telling you,
it's a world-class menagerie. Prince Ali and some That's a steak, how can I speak? Wink at the name. Well, get on out in that square. Adjust your veil and prepare to gawk and grovel and stare at Prince Ali.
Okay, in case you missed it, what we had there was a picture of the genie, who is a male figure, right, in the movie Aladdin. He's a genie. And suddenly, in this scene, he comes out and he sort of pops out of the balcony dressed in women's underwear, right? And he's like dancing with like the other women there, like with, fully equipped, right? Now, again, like these are small scenes, right? Small allusions, right? But a questioning mind would question, like, wait a minute, we thought he was a male figure. What are you doing wearing women's underwear? And children, when it comes to these type of movies, they don't watch it just once. Okay, they watch it many, many, many times. And they can recreate the whole, the whole dialogue, everything that happens, right? Because they watch it so many times. All right, now, this is another example. This is from a book series called Geronimo Stilton. How many of you have heard of this? Right? Okay, so how many of your children read this book? Okay, it's if you don't know, right? You can like a lot of kids do, like a lot, like from grade 2, maybe as soon as they can start reading. This is one of the first books that they read now. Now, you might ask your children this question that, okay, what type of book is it? And they'll be like, oh, it's perfectly good. It's just funny. It's like just it's just comical. There's nothing wrong with it. I've asked my students about this, and they're like, no, nothing's wrong with it. There's just this mouse and his sister, and they go through different adventures, and it's just funny. We enjoy reading it. But then I just went to the library yesterday, and I was just I wanted to see, right? And I came across this in Geronimo Stilton. This is again the first book that kids are reading once they can read. Okay, so it's a story about. This is in one of the books, right? It's a story about this mouse, Geronimo Stilton, who has a dream. Okay, and in this dream, he sees that he's having romantic dinner with this lady mouse, and then basically he's fantasizing about her in his dreams. And then on the next page, they have that picture of the two like smooching, right? I mean, they're kissing each other, right? Now, again, you might be like, okay, well, what's the big deal, brother? Like, come on, like, this is what happens in real life. Okay, fine, it happens in real life, but as a first book for a grade 2 student, that they should be exposed to this type of thing, right? And it's interesting how for many books there's no mention of romance at all, and then suddenly in this book it's all full of romance. It's like the Valentine edition version of the Geronimo Stilton sort of series, right? Now, do we want to expose our children to the correct perspective on gender interaction and all that? Yes, we do, but we want to be controlling that. We don't want them to teach them, especially this version of it. It's very interesting. When I read this book, I was shocked. I mean, the whole plot of it is that Geronimo, he falls in love with this Stephanie, and then he wants to find a way to make her love him, but she doesn't pay any attention to him. So he goes to a fortune teller, and then the fortune teller says that if you pay me a couple $100, right, I'm going to make it happen for you. Right? So he's like, okay. So he gives her the money, and then she makes it happen for him. Now, if you just combine like all the messaging that's being given to our children, when you want to accomplish something, what is it that you need to do? Right? When you have a haja, you have a need, whom do you turn to solve that need? At the very least, we have to be aware of what type of messaging is being given to our children. Okay, the next example I give is from Frozen. Okay, how many of your children have seen Frozen? Okay, how many of your children have seen it multiple times? Why is it that only the ladies raise their hands? Okay. They know it better. Okay. All right. Now, this is just one observer's comments, right? She says that in the making of this movie, it is apparent that the very best talent within the industry was called upon. And the goal was to woo its intended audience parents into a frozen state, which would then allow liberalism to indoctrinate children. This is somebody's opinion. Okay, now, let's see. Let's look at some of the words and the messaging that's being given in this movie. Okay, here she is. All right, now she is. I think her name is Elsa. Right, so she's like, it's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Okay, now just like, what perspective does that give versus the perspective of Inni Abdullah, right? I am a servant of Allah, right? Like, it's, from my perspective, it's night and day, right? I'm a servant of Allah. I'm looking to understand what the rules are. I want you to guide me, O Allah, and tell me what I should be doing, versus that there is no right and wrong. It's really up to me, whatever I want to do, right? And it continues, right? I couldn't keep it in. Heaven knows I've tried. Don't let them in. Don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal, don't feel, don't let them know. Well, now they know. Right? This is a direct translation of the concept of coming out of the closet. Right? I mean, there's nothing else. I mean, like, this is what it means to come out of the closet. Okay, now, when somebody's listening, okay, it continues, right? Let it go, can't hold it back anymore, let it go. Turn away, slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I am free. What happens now is that it's a very, very attractive melody, right? Extremely catching. One of the, apparently like the most like sort of catching song of recent times, right? there was a friend of ours, right, who, very, very good lady, right, she was kind of like, saying it as a point of pride. She's a bilingual. She speaks both English and she speaks Persian as well. She's like, my daughter has memorized this Frozen song and can sing it not only in English but in Persian as well. So alhamdulillah, okay, great. Now your child is like singing it in English and Persian, singing it again and again. Now, do we think that even once that maybe that the messaging will somehow get through, right? That there is no right and there is no wrong. Let it be. I'm going to be free. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Okay. Anyway, we don't have to go there. Now, this is from a book. It's called Stephanie's Ponytail. All right. Anybody familiar with this book? Yeah. Okay. Who's the author? Robert Munsch. Robert Munsch is. I didn't actually know about him before I moved to Canada, right? Or before. I guess my wife is Canadian, so maybe she told me. But it wasn't something that I grew up with. But here, our children, because he's a Canadian author, right? They really do read Robert Munsch, right? People think of him as funny, right? Okay, now it's a story of Stephanie and her ponytail, right? She wants mom says that, okay, I'm going to put a ponytail on you, right? So she says that, would you like a ponytail? No, I don't want a ponytail. Then that's that, said her mom. That's the only place you can do ponytails. No, it's not. I want one coming out of the side above my ear. Very strange, said the mom. Are you sure that's what you want? Yes. So her mom gave Stephanie a nice ponytail coming out right above her ear. Now when she goes to school the next day, the other kids see her and they say, ugly, ugly, very ugly. She says that it's my ponytail and I like it. Okay, notice the italics. All right, my ponytail and I like it. The next morning when Stephanie came to school, all the girls, even some of the boys, had nice ponytails coming out just above their ears. Okay, yeah, okay, it's funny, right? Aha, yeah, right, this is really creative, really funny. Okay, but what is the underlying ideology? What is it that's being promoted? Right? Why is that in italics? Right? Allah says in the Quran, Allah describes the biggest of the idols. The biggest of the idols. Right? The most dangerous, the most vicious of idols in the Quran. What does He say? A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Ara'ayta man ittakhadha ilahahu hawa. Right? Let me tell you of the one who has taken himself or herself as his God. And those who take themselves and their opinion as being the decisive matter. Whatever I want, right? I, me, right? This is a first it didn't come out, the graphics didn't come out, but it says here, this is a picture I took from a public school in Canada, right? It was the first thing you see when you walk into the public school. I know where I'm going. I don't have to be what you want me to be. I want to be what I want. Okay? What is the ideology? That was one of it's up to me whatever I want to do, right? Now, you can ask yourself, right? I mean, is this an Islamic ideology, right? Why is it being pushed in so many different ways? Right? I thought you might find this interesting. Just this morning, I happened to look at one of the doors in the school, Islamic school, and it says that this isn't Burger King. You can't always have what you want, right? It made me very, very proud of the teacher, right? Like that. In Islamic school, right? It's not about what I want to do. It's about you. It's not about you, right? It's about what is right and what is wrong. Okay. The next example of an anti-God theme I'm going to take is Grand Theft Auto. Okay, Grand Theft Auto is a video game, right? You go and you drive cars, right? But it's a lot more than just a video game, right? There's a lot more stuff that happens there. This is from the reviews of that game, where there's a mother who is talking about the type of things in that video and basically saying that the mini game and the strip club that's always there, right? And then you can turn it on, you can turn it off. Basically, she's saying that the majority of the swearing is in the cut scenes, which you should be able to trust your child to skip if you want them to. And the same goes for the lack of clothing, although it isn't shown very often, once or twice throughout the game. At the end, then I don't think you should have any concerns about giving it to anyone over 13, since the language isn't any different and probably less frequent than what they would hear at school. Now, this game has a TV or MA rating, meaning that it's supposed to be for adults 18 and above. And these are non-Muslims who are saying this, right? That's why it really saddens me sometimes when I hear of Muslim children, right, Shia children being given free access to this type of game. And I hope it's not the case that we can agree with this type of ideology, which is that, let us trust our kids, right? Is that how we do parenting, that we just trust our kids? From the very beginning, right, like you know how it is when it comes to our kids, right? Do we just say, okay, just here's the keys to the house, right? You do your own thing, I'm going to do my own thing, right? As parents, we don't do that, right? We're careful to make sure that, that God forbid that they should do something which is dangerous to their physical health. Same thing when it comes to their spiritual health as well. Now, this is something which, it's a big deal, okay? Like, according to statistics, yeah, 70% of all 8 to 18-year-olds, boys have played it, and 85% of 15 to 18-year-olds, all right? So, there's a very, very good chance that every single child, right, will be playing this game. All right, it's something which that was in 2010. Right now, it's even more prevalent, like meaning that it's something which is almost like impossible to avoid when children go and they go to other people's homes, at home, whatever it may be. Okay. The harm number 4 is promotion of negative behavior. All right. So what I want to give here is examples of violence, swearing, and fear as well. Now, the first one is violence. Now, as an example for this, I want to again give the game Grand Theft Auto. Right? This is a scene from that game which says that hold this button to grip with the left clip and that one to grip with the right clip, and press this button to spark the clips. Now, what's happening here is that they're torturing this person right here. Okay. Now, this is the type of violence which is being given to children. Okay. And here they describe like the scene. Where it comes to the language that's being used in that scene, and it's talking about the different words that are being said in that as well too, and different content and those type of things. Okay. Now, this is sometimes an excuse that we hear from the children, which is that it's just language and it's just violence, right? It's kind of like as if it's not a big deal. It doesn't really affect me. Actually. That's not correct, because again, going back to the premise, what we see determines who we are. Okay, this is just interesting stats about violence in TV. Okay, the number of murders seen on TV by the time an average children finishes elementary school, 8,000. Violent acts that they see on TV, 200,000. Percentage of Americans who believe TV violence helps precipitate real life mayhem, 79. Right? And then the number of minutes per week that parents spend in meaningful conversation with their children, 3.5. All right? There's a lot of research that's been done on this topic of violence. If you look and see what is the overall sort of, what is it that's happening when people are exposed to violence repeatedly, is that, number one, it destroys the innocence of children. Okay, children naturally have innocence. They're not okay with violence. They're upset by it. But when you show it to them and you expose it to them repeatedly, then it destroys that innocence. It leads to attraction and then even imitation as well of that violence. It diminishes the sanctity of human life and the horror of harming it, and it leads to a violent response to life challenge. What I mean by the violent response is that we as human beings are taught that, as part of our system of akhlaq, is that if we're provoked, if we're irritated, then we need to respond with patience, right? With hilm, right? If somebody comes to you and they start arguing with you, like the example of our imams is what? Is that they would respond with kindness. Idfa' billati hiya ahsan, as the Quran says. But when somebody's playing a video game, like what they get trained to do is to respond to aggression with more aggression, right? You punch me, I'm going to come and I'm going to punch you there and punch you here as well too. Right? Or I'm going to shoot you, or I'm going to kick you, whatever it is. Right? That type of violent reaction is something which is directly opposed to what our system of akhlaq teaches us. Let's see. Yeah. So, there was a very interesting study done about fear and horror in movies. Okay, now, I want you to just think about this. Like, when you were a child, right, did you ever see any horror movies that the effect of which stayed with you? Right? Anybody know, like anybody want to mention, what movie did you watch when you were a kid where it was something that kind of maybe kept you up at night, or that got into your dreams? Any movies? Yeah? Jurassic Park. Okay. Any others? Right? Bollywood movies. Okay. All right. What about Jaws? Anybody seen when they were like Jaws, right? Remember the Jaws, right? All right. I'll tell you from my own experience, right? when I was a kid, I walked into, I don't know who it was. Like there were some adults who were watching a James Bond movie. Okay, now in this James Bond movie, there was, like, he was sleeping on the bed, and there was like an assassin who was like on the ceiling, who was like kind of going along the ceiling and had poison. I don't know if it was a lady or a man assassin, but they had poison in a vial, and then they were trying to aim it so that when he's sleeping, that he would be turned this way, that they would drop the poison and would go right into the mouth of James Bond, right? Now, some of you might have actually seen that before, right? After I saw that, for at least 1 year, I was terrified to go to sleep. Okay, I'm just going to go my personal experience, all right? Now, I was kind of curious about this, right? Like, is this, am I just weird? Like, is this something with me, right? And then I found that there was a lady.
Allahu Akbar, Allah.
There was a lady. Her name is Cantor. Okay, she's done research particularly on the effect of the Jaws movie. Like, it was such a profound effect in like the society that she actually did like a specific study of what kind of effect it have on people, right? She did a very interesting thing at the university where she had students fill out a survey about whether they've ever seen a scene in a movie like that which kind of like affected them. And basically, I'll just summarize the conclusion. She said that 90% of the respondents of that survey said that they have had scenes that have frightened or disturbed them so much that the emotional effect endured after the program or the movie was over. And of these, then 35% said that the effects lasted more than a year, and 26% said that they were still with them at the time of the survey, which was about 6 years after. Meaning that it's a very common thing that when we see scenes of violence or like scary scenes in a movie, that it does affect us, right? Now, again, we have a responsibility towards our children, and we need to protect them from these types of things. Okay, the other harm when it comes to media is that it can distract us from what's important. Okay, there's a lot of distraction when it comes to media. Like a lot of times when our children are just engaged and busy in doing something. But the question is that, is this the purpose for what they've been created for? Is this how they're supposed to spend their time? Right? Look at this tradition from Imam Ali alayhi salam. He says that every glance in which there is no learning or contemplation, it's something which is lahu. Right? Again, the words of the Imam alayhi salam are very powerful, they're very deep. What is in the Arabic language, what is something that is lahu? It's something that makes you occupied and distracts you from something else. That something else is something which is more important than this distraction, and that distraction is done in a subconscious way. Meaning that the effect of media is that it takes, according to Imam al-Islam, is that it takes our children away from the path that they're supposed to be walking on and diverts them to another path. Okay? Now, what's an example of this, right? Minecraft. Now, I'm not saying Minecraft is something which is like, haram, right? Don't get me wrong, right? I'm just giving an example. We have YouTube channels which are set up where they record somebody playing Minecraft. Okay, now of all the types of distractions that you could come up with, like it's one thing to play the game, right? But now you have like children who spend hours and hours watching other people play the games. Let me sit back and watch this other kid like play the game, right? Subhanallah, like the way that they've been able to come up with a system to basically like capture the attention of our children. Right? Other examples of this lahu, right? You have YouTube channels in general, right? You have this lady called Superwoman. Okay, I don't really know too much about her, right? But if you just look at the types of episodes, right? What is it that she talks about, and why is it? Why this is one of the most like she's more watched than like all the famous like actors and actresses that you can come up with, right? Like kids like follow every single episode that she puts out, right? But what is she busy with them? What sort of topics does she discuss, right? How can this be something which is useful for our children? Okay, the other harm is that it over-exercises the power of imagination. It's good. It's good to be a creative person, good to be an imaginative person. But according to our Islamic teachings, that there is a purpose for our imagination, which is to help us understand reality. Okay, why is it that Allah makes use of stories in the Quran? Why does He make use of parables in the Quran? It's not just so that we can have a good story, right? It's in order to teach us about reality. Right? When it comes to our children, And this idea of giving them, exercising their imagination, be creative, fantasize, right? Think about things, right? We have to ask ourselves, well, what is the purpose of that? Is it just so that they can spend their time, just so that they can feel happy? No, there has to be some purpose behind it, which is that I want my son and my daughter, right, to understand more about reality by means of fiction. Right? So what that means is that fiction and imagination is supposed to be used as a means, not as an end in and of itself. Okay? The problem is that in today's world of media, right, with fantasy and science fiction and all of that, right, it gets to a point where it becomes a thing on its own, right? Where we have children who, half of their waking day is lived in a world which is not this world right here. Why is it that we have this problem with children not being mature enough to get married, right? Even it's really sad. You have people who are graduating from university and they're not ready to get married, right? And then you know how many problems that causes in our societies, right? Or we have so many examples of people who try to get married young because they heard the ulama say, okay, the Prophet said that you should get married when you're young, so they get married when they're young, and then the marriage gets broken up, right? Why is that? It's because they're not mature enough, right? They weren't ready for it. Why are they not mature enough? Because they're living in fantasy land, right? They think of this world as being some a place where whenever you have problems, you have to pick up your wand and wave it and say a spell, and then you can get your problem solved, right? That's not reality. So this is something we have to be careful about. What is the role of imagination? How much do we want to have our children be engaging in it? If it's over-exercised, it can actually be harmful. Okay, the remaining portion of the presentation has to do with specific recommendations, right? Now that we have, inshallah, we've gotten a chance to think about this, right? What is it our children are viewing? What are some specific steps that we can take with respect to watching media, and also some alternatives as well? I do want to take a break right here, though, because I just need a few minutes of a break. I think that this first part of the session goes until 12:30, I believe. Is that right? 12:10? Okay, 12:10. Okay, so, just inshallah, and we'll take a few minutes break, inshallah. Maybe about 11:45 we can start up again then. Okay? Please say salawat ala Muhammad.